What's good, guys? Welcome back to the Upper Room Community Podcast, where you're here to be elevated in mindset, habit, and spirit. I'm your host, Raquel Sade, and I'm very happy to be back with you guys. It's been I'm lying. It has not been a long 2 weeks. I feel like every time I upload a new video, I blink 2 times, and then it's time to record again. Honestly, like, the days have been going by so quickly. I don't even know what's going on, but at the end of the day, what am I going to do about it? Cry and lay in the fetal position and just cry about the time going by fast? No, I'm just going to have to put myself to work, not be lazy, and keep it pushing, because time waits for no one. I know it's just not me. I know everybody's looking and saying, like, where is the time going? Anyway, this is episode 8. Another great episode coming up for you guys. Today, I'm going to pose the question, how can your life change in an instant? As I addressed earlier, how time is going by so fast and we just don't even know what to do with ourselves. It is important to sit and ponder on what we can do in order to change our lives in an instant. What needs to be done, because there's some things that take time and there's some things that can be pretty much instantaneous, because time is going by so fast. And, sometimes we used to think that we had all the time in the world, and we soon realized that that's not necessarily the case, especially as we're getting older. And, each day we're getting older. Each day is a new day to mature. Even though, God's mercies are new every morning, we shouldn't use that as an excuse to stay where we are. We should use that as actual motivation to start afresh and do better than we did the day before, because time is running out, whether we want to accept it or not, or whether we want to sit in that sorrow of knowing that, time is slowly slipping away. And before you guys take that term of time slipping away in such a negative thing, it could definitely be flipped into a positive. And in my perspective, when I do feel down about time slipping away, if I am being productive with my time, if I am pursuing my calling, if I am doing everything in my power in order to improve my life and improve the life of others, then time slipping away, quote, quote, is actually encouraging, because it helps me to realize that I'm just getting closer and closer to fulfilling my destiny and living out the very things that I've been believing for and I've been working for. So you shouldn't always look at time slipping away in such a negative way, but you can look at it and flip it and make it work for your favor. Like, I'm doing what I have to do, so that just means I'm getting closer to my breakthrough. I'm getting closer to that instant change, like that suddenly. That takes me from point A to point B, because there's a lot of preparation that we need to take part of in order to get to that very place where we dream about and, have faith for. So as long as you're being consistent and as long as you're working at it and you're making it an actual priority to get these things done so that you can see the fulfillment of what you're called here on this earth to do, then each day passing by you should actually be more motivated and more excited, highly anticipating the breakthrough, highly anticipating the sudden change that shapes your life for the rest of your life. Like, each day you wake up, you have a new chance. You have another chance to do better. You have another chance to keep pushing. You have another chance for that destiny to actually be manifested here on earth. And of course, sometimes some days are better than others, but if you keep that perspective going, I'm one day closer to my destiny being fulfilled here on earth, then each day you will look at life with such a brighter lens. And I think that will definitely help you to not be so defeated and walk with your head down, and that will keep your shoulders pushed back and your head held high if you keep that perspective on a day-to-day basis, that each day you wake up, you are one day closer to your destiny being fulfilled. You are one day closer to what you've been dreaming for. All it takes is one day to change the trajectory of your life. All it takes is one day to step into something new. All it takes is one day to make that decision to move forward and to do something you've never done before in order to get the results you've never had. The decisions we make are imperative. The decisions we make are a part of what holds our future. And once we realize that, it really takes one day and one decision to change the trajectory of our life, like, that's very motivational to know that you have the power actually to change something. You have the power, like, your life is in your hands in a way. Like, our lives are in God's hands, but because we are here on earth, God gave us dominion. He gave us rulership. And he gave us the power to be able to rule not only ourselves, but the things that we do to help change our environment and help change the environments of others. Like, all we need is one day to realize, like, I need to fix this so that I can get to the next point. And it will benefit you. It's like when you're driving a car with a GPS and you're heading the wrong direction. Like, if you're continuously going in the wrong direction, that's not going to get you to where you need to go. You need to make the decision to make a U-turn, to make that left or to make that right, and then get on the right track, and then you will get to your destination. It's quite simple. And I think in life we kind of tend to make things more difficult than it needs to be, because we are stuck in being comfortable, and we are stuck being a slave to our emotions, being a slave to our feelings. And sometimes we need to learn that our feelings and our emotions can very much be our worst enemy at times. And in a world where we're currently, like, learning or being fed to do as you please, do as you will, follow your heart, like, these phrases sound good, but they're actually setting you up for a life of disaster. And that's one thing I definitely had to learn within the last year or two, like, because I'm a very emotional person. I'm very, if you want to say, quote unquote, in tune with my emotions. And me being in tune with my emotions definitely put me at a disadvantage at times, because I would let my emotions rule me. I will let my emotions dictate how I look at the future, dictate what I say about the future, and dictate what I actually do in the present that can affect my future. I would get angry, I would get anxious, I would get depressed. I would just mask in those emotions instead of letting that be a focal point to actually dig deeper and change how I'm actually feeling in that moment so that I can be further along. I truly feel like in life I wasted so much time dwelling in my emotions and sitting in a pool of my emotions, sitting in a pool of sadness and unforgiveness and resentment and rejection. I feel like I just wasted so much time sitting in those emotions, and those emotions actually made me my worst enemy, because I started to internalize those emotions, and I started to talk to myself based off of those emotions that I felt in that moment. And it definitely took some time, and it dictated how I moved on a day-to-day basis. When I was in college, my junior year of college, I definitely allowed my mind to be my worst enemy. I definitely allowed my emotions to be my worst enemy. And I thought it was okay, because that's how I felt. And, I need to go through the emotions, go through the feelings, all the things that they tell you. And no, sometimes you need to say, like, how I'm feeling right now, I get it. But at the end of the day, what is this feeling that I'm feeling right now? How is this going to benefit me? And what is it actually doing to me right now to cripple me? Like, instead of just masking in those emotions and letting it rule me, I should have looked at why I was feeling that way and become more solution oriented to say to myself, like, all right, I get it that I'm feeling this way. Not saying that the feelings weren't justified, but how can I turn this around? What can I do for myself to help turn these things around and to help actually make this something that's beneficial to me instead of being a detriment? One verse that I can actually give to back or bring validation to what it is that I'm saying right now is Jeremiah 17 verse 9. In that verse it says that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. And that word deceitful in that verse, in the original translation, means sly or slippery. And I actually find it very funny that it means slippery because like I was saying earlier, like once you feel that emotion and you start to dwell on those emotions for a long time, it becomes a slippery slope. And that's why it's so important to the Bible says to hold every thought captive and hold it under subjection to the word of God, because our emotions tend to tell lies, our thoughts tend to tell lies, and it is a slippery slope. Like once you give attention to it, once you feed that thought, feed that emotion, and keep like trying to validate the way that why you feel that way, you will start to go down a slippery slope of that emotion, and it will be in such a prolonged period of time, and you would realize how much time you've actually wasted sitting and dwelling in that emotion and actually just sitting in that pool, that cesspool of sadness or anger or wrath or rejection. It's very dangerous to do so. It's very dangerous to sit there and spend so much time trying to validate your emotions. And I think that we tend to do it as human beings because it does give us self-validation. It does, in a way, like big up ourselves internally to validate ourselves. Like, that person was wrong for this. And it tends to make yourself seem like more validated or more important, or it's just like a false way of self-validation. And it can be looked at as a form of pride. But it's like if you are filled with the doctrine of the world, and when I say the world, I mean the systems that we are surrounded with, the vernacular, the terms, the culture that we are surrounded with, and you're continuously here, follow your heart, feel your emotions, feel the fear and do it anyways. All of these sayings that tend to validate your emotions and tend to validate you actually sitting in these emotions and operating in those emotions. It doesn't make sense when you say, masking in these emotions and sitting in it and trying to validate yourself is a form of pride. It doesn't make sense when you hear something saying like the heart is deceitfully wicked, because you have been hearing the complete opposite pretty much your whole life. And in the verse when it actually says that the Lord gives every man according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings, that proved what I said in the beginning about how our life is in our hands. And if somebody who is like a super legalistic Christian or somebody, that's super religious would hear that in the beginning, they'd be like, no, our life is not in our hands. Our life is in God's hands. Yes, our life is in God's hands, but at the same time, because we have rulership here and we have freedom of choice, like the longer you, that verse validates that my statement is saying our life is in our hands, because the Lord gives us over to what we're doing on a daily basis. So we have the total control to actually not sit in our emotions, but choose what to do about it, choose how to change it, choose how to move on from it, choose how to cast those negative thoughts down and those lies that you've been telling yourself, and walk in the truth and walk in a truth of knowing that there's a better tomorrow, of walking in the truth of knowing that you can change how you're feeling in this moment and you can move different. Like We have total control over how we move. We have total control over what we do in certain situations. We have total control of over how we feel, and we should not be so fragile and let like how people move towards us dictate the trajectory of our lives based off of our emotions. And I said it before in another episode, like our emotions are indicators, they're not dictators. Our emotions should be indicators to help us say, why am I still wounded in this area? Or why did I get so triggered when so and so said such and such? Why am I allowing somebody else's actions dictate how I'm moving for the rest of the day, or dictate how I'm moving in the rest of my relationships? Like, they should be indicators to help us grow, help us remove certain things that, has been lying dormant within us that we haven't even remembered. Our emotions should not dictate how we move in the future, and dictate how we obtain our future, because our emotions can definitely delay us. So if we're looking at the question that I posed in the beginning on how can we change our life in an instant, one way we can change our life in an instant is going by that rule, or going by that truth of letting our emotions be indicators but not dictators of our lives. If we sit here and we actually say like, yo, I'm making the decision today to not let my emotions rule me anymore. Boom, you just change your life in an instant. And if you're being consistent with that decision that you've made, you will change, and your life will change dramatically. I'm telling you, because I was one of those people when I had to come to terms with that and say, I'm no longer letting my emotions dictate my life. I'm no longer letting my emotions dictate my day and dictate what I do in it. I'm no longer going to allow my emotions to keep me in a bed all day, sad, isolated, sitting in a dark room. Like I'm making the decision to change my life, and my emotions are no longer ruling me. I'm putting my emotions under subjection to the Word of God, to the Holy Spirit, and it's truly changed me. I am 100% a changed person because of that. And if y'all watch my podcast before, you should know that I love looking at the root word of things. I love looking at words and the definition of things, because our words help to shape our life. But if we look at the word decide, it's defined as to come to a resolution in the mind as a result of a consideration. And the root word for decide is Latin, and it means to cut or cut off. So when you're making a decision, that means you are cutting off any other option. You will be more intentional when you actually make the decision, the very step to help change where you are. And decisions are important because a lot of us, especially in this generation, I feel like we take a long time to make decisions because we actually don't want to get uncomfortable. I feel like we take too long trying to do the hard things. And, I've been guilty of it before. So I'm not like coming at anybody, but I feel like in this generation, we take too long to make decisions. We take too long to do the uncomfortable things, do the hard things, because we want to stay in that realm of comfortability. And that's toxic. It's toxic to us because it makes us our worst enemy. We tend to sell ourselves short because we don't want to get uncomfortable, but that's all a part in growth. Being uncomfortable is the necessary step that needs to be taken in order to grow. A lot of the big decisions we make in life start with doing something that will make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel out of place, make you feel a little bit out of whack. Like if you made a decision like, I'm going to buy a house by next year, you're gonna have to do some uncomfortable things like saving, like staying inside more, or like putting more money aside. So you're gonna be more boxed in. You're not gonna have as much freedom in terms of like throwing money all over the place. And that's very uncomfortable for a moment, but it's only for a moment that it's uncomfortable, because down the line, it's either in 1 year you're in your dream house and you're in your house that you've paid for with your money, or a year later you're still stuck and you're in the same place because you didn't want to make that decision to become uncomfortable to receive a reward that would totally benefit your life. And I tend to feel like we're too stuck on enjoyment. We're too stuck on the, oh, follow your heart. Oh, do as you will. Do as you feel. You're young. Live in it. Live in these emotions. Do what you want. You have freedom. Those are the very lies that are being told to us on a daily basis. And those are the very lies that are keeping us stuck. Those are the very lies that are keeping us in mediocre positions in our life, because we keep telling ourselves, enjoy life. Like, it's okay. Enjoy life. Like, live through your emotions, live through your feelings. You're entitled to do this. You're entitled to do that. Like, we need to get rid of being a slave to our feelings and our emotions, because they will keep us stuck. We have to stop being our own worst enemy, and we have to stop being the demise to our future. We have to understand and come to terms with every day in life we're not always going to be able to live off of desire. In a world system that constantly feeds us the lies of living off of pleasure on a daily basis, and go where you feel pleased, go where you feel comfortable, go where you feel love, go where you're loved. Like, those lies are the ones that are gonna keep us dormant. Those lies are the ones that are actually gonna make us poor, make us stuck, and can ruin our lives. And it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope if you choose every day to live off pleasure. If you choose every day to live off of how you feel, it's a very slippery slope. There's actually a verse in Proverbs. It's Proverbs 21 verse 17, and it says, whoever loves pleasure will be a poor man. He who loves wine and oil will not be rich. Those who love pleasure become poor. Those who love wine and luxury will never be rich. And it goes back to that point when I was saying, like, if you make a decision to buy a house next year, and you know that you have to go through those uncomfortable moments of cutting back, of staying inside, of not going out as you usually do, of not spending as much money as you have, of not spending as much money on clothes and luxury, because you have a goal at hand that you're trying to achieve, and you actually do the thing. Like, you didn't put pleasure first, and because you didn't put pleasure first, you are now reaping the benefits of the dream that you've had put in place, or you are now reaping the benefits of the decision you made, versus you saying you want to buy a house next year, but you love pleasure. So you're still going out. You're still going out for happy hour. You're still going out for drinks. You're still buying nice clothes. You're still taking trips. And next year comes and you don't have money for a down payment because you decided to be a slave to pleasure. You decided to love pleasure more than loving the decision you made in the beginning to actually do something different with your life. Like, the system, they really cloud our mind with lies, telling us to follow our heart, follow our pleasure, follow our emotions, follow where you feel good. You're not always going to feel good in those places that are good for you. Like, exercising doesn't always feel good. Not all vegetables that are healthy for you taste good. Like, sometimes cutting off that toxic relationship or breaking up with that person that's holding you back doesn't feel good, but you know at the end of the day that you are working towards something, you're pushing towards something better. And all it takes is that one decision. All it takes is that one day to change the trajectory of your life once again. All it takes is that one day to say, you know what? I love you, but you are not good for me. And I need to put myself first. All it takes is that one day to make that decision and actually do it to change your life. All it takes is one day to put down the spliff to be in years of not smoking anymore, years of actually having an increase in money because you're not spending money on apes every 2 days. All it takes is that one day, that one decision to say, I'm tired of where I am. Although it seems to feel good, it pleases me, but I know it's not benefiting me. And if I stay in this season of living off of pleasure, I know I'm not going to be where I need to be down the line. We tend to want change, but we aren't willing to step into the change we want to see before we see it. And we're never going to see it until we step into the change, until we make the decision to change, until we act on the decision to change. Like I said last week, in order to see something you've never seen, you have to be willing to do something you've never done. It's imperative to not only want to change, but make the decision and walk in that decision to do so. We talk about change all the time. We talk about growth all the time. We talk about it's my development season. We tend to talk about it all the time, and we stay stuck because it's like we're not willing to get uncomfortable. We love pleasure. And again, I've been guilty of it. I've been guilty of it before. We love pleasure. We love what feels good. We tend to sit in something that we know we need to move from. But because we idolize pleasure so much, we do not move on and we stay stuck. And then down the line, we're like, what did I do? Why didn't I just do it? Because right now in this current situation, the pleasure looks better than the end result. Well, actually pursuing the end result. But then when the time goes on and what was pleasurable actually becomes toxic and actually becomes a huge burden, then the process of getting to the end result looks much better. And we have to quit doing that to ourselves. One thing we should quit is doing that. The circumstances that are outside of us might not change instantly, but us making that choice to change was an instant thing that will eventually cause our outside situations and cause the circumstances outside of us to change as well. It will change. Things around us will change. We have the power to change our environment. We have the power to speak to something and make things move. But it starts with us making that decision and making that choice to actually do it. If we look at Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, it says, to everything there is a season. There's a time for every purpose under heaven. There's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones. And if you look at that verse, the thing that seems uncomfortable is usually first. A time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up. What's uncomfortable most of the times will come first. What's uncomfortable, we have to go through that in order to reap the benefits of that decision to be uncomfortable. But remember, everything has a season under heaven. Everything has a season. Uncomfortability is only a season. That place where you're feeling hurt, that place where you're feeling scared, that place where you're feeling like giving up, is only for a season, because you have to keep focused on what's ahead. Keep focused on why you made the decision in the first place, because you want to see change. And if we hold on to that and knowing that everything has a season, then we will be more inclined to actually keep pushing and pursuing what we know is good for us. Just remember to make the decision to not be a slave to pleasure anymore. Make the decision to no longer be a slave to your emotions. Make the decision to be uncomfortable for a season so that you can grow and so that you can walk into the manifestation of a better life. And just remember that all it takes is one day. All it takes is one decision to change the trajectory of your life. I hope you guys enjoyed this very much needed episode. Make sure you send it to an enemy, send it to your loved one, send it to a stranger, send it to someone that you know needs to hear this message. Let me know what you think. Let's talk, let's discuss, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. And just remember to make the daily decision to elevate in mindset, habit, and spirit. Love you guys. I'll talk to y'all soon.